Hey guys, what's up? Hope everybody's doing well out there today, and welcome back here to another edition of the Fishing Teacher. Today we're going to be giving some tips and advice on how to fish a swim jig, and we're going to explain what a swim jig is and when you want to fish it and everything you need to know about swim jigs. We're just trying to go over all the different lure categories to sort of give you guys a foundation, and then we'll move on from there. So anyway, guys, here it is. We talked about jigs a little bit in the past, and a swim jig is a jig, but it's different. It still has the lead head and the weed guard and the hook like a traditional jig, but it's a little bit different because the head design on a swim jig is different from a traditional jig. This has got more of a streamlined fish head on it, and the stream head design on this thing is so you can reel this bait, and that's why it's called a swim jig, because you swim it in. You can reel it through the water column without it running off to its side. So the head design is different. It's not designed to come through like brush and heavy cover. It's designed to swim in a straight line. And then also you normally have a little bit lighter wire hook in there, a lighter weed guard, because you don't need a heavy enough weed guard. This particular model, this is a Megabass Uzo swimmer. It has a blade on it, but most swim jigs don't have a blade. It's just sort of an added attractant. And then the other aspect about a swim jig that's usually different is you have some type of a tail, a trailer on your swim jig that has a flapping tail. So what happens is when you reel this swim jig through the water like this, the tails flap and give it extra action. Now, a swim jig is fished completely different than a regular jig. You know, regular jigs, you usually cast them out and work them along the bottom, or you pitch them in around brush piles. Try to get it down in heavy cover on the bottom, trying to resemble, a crawdad, hanging out by the rocks or whatever. But a swim jig is designed to be more of it's designed to resemble more of a bait fish or a perch coming through the water, depending upon the color of the jig. Now you can make the jigs a lot of different colors. I just have a green one on here with a shad skirt, just because that's just the trailer I picked out. But most of the time, if you use a light colored skirt with a light colored trailer, you're resembling some type of a shad or minnow. And then if you go to like maybe a yellow or an orange with a green trailer on it, that can resemble a perch. So the swim jigs fish different. Basically, you throw it out there, and as soon as the jig hits the water, I like to start reeling it immediately and keeping my rod tip high. So what happens is I can see this jig just barely under the surface coming through the water. I like to fish it where I can see the jig coming, or maybe just barely out of sight, but I want to keep it fairly high to the water column. So I'll throw it up to the bank, start reeling immediately. I maybe pump it a little bit like that to give it a little bit of action instead of just reeling it straight in. I'll throw it out there and like shake my rod at the same time, and it sort of gives it this sort of the up and down movement. I'll throw it around the edge of grass beds, around the edge of stumps, around the edge of boat docks, around any cover, around shade pockets, just whatever. I'm just covering water with it, trying to get those fish to come up on it. And when they bite it, a lot of times they hit it like a topwater lure. You come up and you'll see an actual boil behind the lure because the lure is so close to the surface. Now, that's the way I like to fish it, but you can also fish it down a little bit deeper. Some people, say for example, if you're fishing a lake that's got some grass in it, and the grass may be 2 or 3 feet under the water, you can drop it down a little bit and swim it over the top of that grass out of sight. That works sometimes. If the water's really dirty, sometimes you can't really see it that well. But my best success has come on this thing when I keep it in sight or just barely out of sight, and I'll bring it up where I can see it once in a while, trying to keep it, within, 2 to 10 inches below the surface, something like that. Now, a swim jig, it works in a wide range of conditions. Most of the time, though, I let my water temperature dictate a swim jig bite. Normally, what I have found, the water temperature needs to be above 60 degrees. So in the springtime of the year, when the water temperature starts to get 60, I'll start to use it, and then I may use it all the way through the summer until the water starts cooling off in the fall. And the only thing that I change is the colors, because you'll find that in the springtime of the year and the fall time of the year, these shad patterns work real good. And during the summer, a perch pattern, something like an orange or greenish on the skirt, will work a little bit better, because in the summertime, a lot of the perch will stay shallow all summer and they spawn, and the swim jig is a good lure for that. So anyway, guys, that's just the little tips and tidbit on swim bait. Also, normally I fish it. A lot of guys like to fish it on braided line. I don't really like that. I usually use, 15 to 20 pound test Seaguar and Vizex 4 carbon, and I fish it on a long rod, like a flipping stick, some rod that's 7.5 foot long. It just allows you, a long rod will help you keep that bait up closer to the surface of the water. So give them a try, guys. They're super